Great. Well, I'd like to introduce William Hardaway, an instructional designer from Fresno State, who's going to share something that he had hoped to share on Tuesday about empathy seeking, but we just had so many great presentations that we moved it to today. But I think empathy is something we need to consider not only with respect to course structure, but assessment as well. So William, take it away.
Yeah, and it's actually very fitting because part of the strategy is a form of assessment as well. So I think it fits really nicely. I first wanted to define empathy, and I'm not sure how many folks did a significant amount of reading on empathy. The reason why I started getting into empathy was because at the time I was running a tutoring program for the university, and we were just trying to figure out where to take our tutoring strategy next. And a big part of that was some of the challenges that tutors were having were students that were not willing to read or do things before coming in. And so we did a big design sprint and did a ton of interviews with different students. And we came up with adding empathy seeking as an actual skill and strategy in our tutoring process. And so now I'm kind of adapting that for the classroom. So to start with, we'll watch this quick video from, it kind of synthesizes Brene Brown's work from.
So what is empathy and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time, because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now, I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So then when we look at how this plays out in the classroom, you can see that different emotions impact the learning of students in different ways. And so earlier, I think we were speaking to a lot of the emotions around, exhaustion, right? So students and the extensions and deadlines and things like that could be a result of being exhausted. So emotions like frustration, closing our minds, and being more solution focused, like what's the answer, give me the answer, make it easy for me, Emotions like being depressed, lacking focus, and not being able to clearly see the purpose of the content, and getting frustrated almost when we see something we don't understand, and almost being a bit rebellious in terms of like what's the purpose of this assignment anyway. Anxious and stressed, we lack focus and fear we will not meet the deadline or get finished with something on time. And so that can result in us shutting down, being upset or angry, and expending energy tearing down the assignment or activity rather than doing the work. And so working in a learning center for years, often what the conversations that I would hear like at the chemistry table or the math table wouldn't be centered around the content or the difficulty of the content. There was a lot of upset. So it would be centered around like the frustration of how the professor lectures or the frustration of how the assignment is set up. Because we all have these emotional responses as a result of the totality of our experiences in that moment. And so what empathy seeking is it's a skill in teaching where we want a relationship-based approach to teaching as opposed to a knowledge delivery-based transactional experience. So as opposed to imparting knowledge, it's like, okay, let's live in this relationship and let's make some agreements as to how we are going to share in this knowledge. The most important part of empathy seeking is actually diagnosing. So empathy seeking is a process about diagnosing the challenges and assets students bring with them and making learning mean more to them given those challenges and assets. So it's moving beyond the surface problem number 2 on the assignment or the intro paragraph in the paper to the emotions, objectives, goals, and connection attached to the learning experience. And so just like the video mentioned, there's just a ton of research, particularly in health, where a lot of patient outcomes and reduction of malpractice are specifically attached to empathy of medical professionals. And so here's the basic framework, and then we'll get into an activity as far as how you can do this at scale in the classroom, because I realize that many of us might teach mega courses where we have 30 to 150 to 200 students in the classroom. And so basically it's the professor gets a gut feeling based on expressions, body language, some form of communication. The professor asks the students how they're feeling in that moment. The professor identifies emotional inflections in the student's story and asks them to describe key emotions. The professor seeks what the student or students want from the learning experience and what their learning values are. A really good study, and maybe as we're discussing in the course, I'll link this, but a really good study is there was a study where professors had students write out their values before exams, and the exam outcomes were much better than when they didn't have students write out their values. And so when we're speaking about the deadlines and flexibility, I think one really great thing about empathy seeking is you're periodically having students reaffirm and reconnect with their learning values as a tool for when we're doing the work. I can remind you of what your values are and what you want out of this. And then the professor verbalizes what is possible for next steps and seeks agreement from the student. And that agreement is often reached with bringing the student's learning values into the conversation. And then if needed, the professor can identify additional resources that can support the student, because learning is such a social, emotional process. There might be some really deep underlying things that you as a professor cannot address in the classroom or through the vehicle of an assignment. So what we can do is, I know that a lot of you are probably already doing work similar to this. So what I wanted to do was start with this brainstorm on Whimsical. So let me put this into the chat. And I'm sorry, I have a monitor up here, but my laptop camera is down here, which is why I'm always looking up, and why I have to also put my screen down to mess with the Zoom toolbar. But there's a link to the whimsical. So what we're gonna do is basically a brainstorm. So let me stop my screen share since we'll all be in whimsical anyway. And what I can do is offer some of the strategies and questions that I've asked. So at scale, when you're working with hundreds of students in larger classrooms, you may not be able to have like discussions about this or interviews or one-on-ones with students. And you might have to do this through periodic surveys during the length of the course. And when you're doing it through surveys, one of the things is, what are the items that you're going to ask? A lot of them should be open-ended, but you can also do some Likert scale items to just get a sense of the general emotions in the room. And so what this exercise is, when you pull a Post-it from the left, you can put like, what are some of the questions or items that you can ask in an empathy-seeking instrument, whether it be a survey, a discussion board, or an activity. So things that get at learning values, things that get at current barriers, things that get at things that are impacting them emotionally, things that get at what's going to prevent them from doing the work, things that get at what is going to help them do the work in a more meaningful way. Assessing how they learn best, things like that. So I ask things like, what is your best learning experience? Describe your best learning experience. And then I'll also ask, describe your worst learning experience. I'll ask them to consider anything in the classroom from kindergarten to now, in other, like on YouTube, like by far the best learning experience. And then I'll do the same thing for the worst. I'll give it the context of this can be a learning experience anywhere. And I just want to know from them what made it great, what made it the worst. And then I'll do this like 3 times during the semester. If it's with a larger group, I do it through surveys. I do it like 3 times during the semester. And it helps a lot because I can also hold them accountable for the learning values that they express. And we can reach agreement for how we can do particular assignments and things based on that. And then for the individual, the process that I showed you, sometimes things come to the surface in this survey process that I can initiate a one-on-one. Hey, I noticed something that you said in your survey, and I wanted to connect with you about it, see how that's going, see how that's working out for you. And then they can get into a little bit more storytelling, and I can do something more impactful for that particular student. Because again, when we're talking about equity, we're not talking about equal, we're not talking about fair, we're talking about what people need at that particular moment given their circumstance. And so having this as a process allows you to connect with specific students on really challenging hardships. Like right now, I'm working with a professor who has a student that is proposing to take a summer class, but they cannot find housing for that 3 weeks. And so we're working with our health center to figure that out. But they just absolutely cannot find, they couldn't extend the lease in their current place, and they can't find a place. And so we're trying to figure out how to help that student. And something like that will come across in a survey as being the most challenging thing that's happening for them at that moment. But thank you all for your time, and hopefully we can post this whimsical link up and share in some of these survey items, ideas, and things like that.
Thank you, William. This was excellent. I'm a big fan of Brene Brown, and I love that clip. I have already put the link to the whimsical activity in the Canvas area, and we'll make those live as soon as we can get those videos up from today's session. And so now I ask Tolu Noah from Cal State Long Beach to get ready to bring us home with our last sharing session of the day. I'm going to stop the recording and start it again.